making bang bang broccoli. I have always been a huge fan of bang bang sauce. One of my favorite things used to be bang bang shrimp from Bonefish, and I don't think it was so much about the shrimp, it was really more about the sauce. Bang bang sauce is just one of my favorite things. I mean, it makes everything a little bit spicier and so much better. I love spicy food, so I was really excited to try this. And I've made it probably about 3 times now. Okay, the first time I made this, I remember saying, this is the best thing I've ever eaten. Like, ever. It's so good. It's so good. And so every time I've made it since then, I feel the same way. Like, it's one of the best things I've ever had ever. I'm really excited to share this recipe with you today. And let's go make some broccoli. Yeah.
Okay, the first thing that we are going to do is make some buttermilk. And I am using cashew milk. Oat milk works really well for this too. I usually go for the thicker plant-based milks, but not coconut because I don't want extra taste. The way that you make a buttermilk vegan is just to take a plant-based milk and then a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, and you mix that in there and let it sit for a few minutes, and it actually turns into what you need for a buttermilk substitute. So you set that to the side. Now this is the bowl that we're going to make our batter in, but it's also the bowl we're going to use, so you want it to be big enough. We need flour, salt, and cornstarch for this dry mixture. We're using 3/4 of a cup of flour. And we are using 1/2 of a cup of cornstarch. And a little bit of salt in there. After you have this dry mixture together, you want to whisk it up a little bit. I like using a whisk, especially when you start adding the wet ingredients. It just makes it so much easier. So now you want to take your buttermilk and put it right into the dry ingredients. And we're also going to add some hot sauce. This is going to make the batter itself spicy, which is so good. And I'm using 2 teaspoons-ish of this hot sauce. And then you just whisk it all together until you get the right consistency here. And this is what you want the batter to look like. Now that we have this made, the next thing we need to do is make a pan of breadcrumbs. So I like doing this in a longer dish. Panko breadcrumbs are my favorite for this because they're extra crispy and crunchy. The day that I was shopping for this, I couldn't find any vegan ones, so I'm using these Italian breadcrumbs. You can use either, the recipe is good. Panko is my favorite if you can find a vegan version of those, but any kind of breadcrumb works. And then I'm just going to mix them together a little bit since I'm using 2 different kinds. Now we set up a little kind of assembly line to make our broccoli. So you want to have your batter, you want to have your bowl of breadcrumbs, and you need a cookie sheet. And you just throw the broccoli into the batter. You want to get as much off as you need to, throw it into the breadcrumbs, and cover it with that crispy deliciousness. And then you just throw it on the baking sheet. and you continue doing this with all of your pieces of broccoli.
That's good.
While the broccoli is baking, we're going to make our sauce. You need some vegan mayo for this. And we're going to use 1/4 of a cup. And I'm mixing all of this in a large bowl, and you'll see why in a minute. The next thing we're going to use is some agave syrup. You need something in here just to sweeten it up a little bit. I've made this bang bang sauce with just sugar before. Rice vinegar is what I'm going to use next, just a little splash of it. You don't need this ingredient, you can definitely make it without it, but it does add another layer to the flavor that's really, really good. And sriracha is the hot sauce I'm going to be using in this. Sometimes I use regular hot sauce, sometimes I mix both of them together. It's really just preference. You can play around with this a little bit. And you can tell if it's right just by the consistency and the color. So if you're mixing it up and you notice that it looks like super liquidy and not much like a sauce, just add a little bit more mayo like I'm about to do here. This is the color and the consistency that you are looking for. After you've taken the broccoli out of the oven and let it cool for just a couple of minutes, you can just add it all into the sauce, and that's why I've used this big bowl so everything can fit in there. And then I just put a lid on and shake it up until everything is covered. And this is what it looks like. How good does that look? And that's it, guys. This is the Bang Bang Broccoli. I really hope you try it, and I really hope you love it. It's delicious.